The first thing I felt when I woke up on Christmas Eve was the cold. Not the kind of cold that makes you shiver and reach for an extra blanket. This was the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. The kind that tells you you've been sleeping somewhere you weren't supposed to be sleeping. The kind that makes you open your eyes and remember exactly where you are and why you're there. I was in the garage, my parents' garage, on Christmas Eve, wrapped in a thin blanket that smelled like motor oil and old cardboard boxes. My breath was visible in the air. I could see it, little puffs of fog with every exhale. The garage door had a gap at the bottom, and the December wind was pushing through it like it had something personal against me. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be in the guest room. The one my parents had promised me when I drove 6 hours to come home for Christmas. The one with the real bed. The one with the heating vent that actually worked. The one that had a door that closed all the way and kept out the sound of my sister laughing inside the house while I froze outside. But my sister's husband had decided he wanted that room. And my parents had decided that keeping the peace with their daughter and son-in-law was more important than keeping their promise to me. So they moved me. At 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve, they came into the guest room while I was half asleep and told me I had to relocate. Why? I had asked. Groggy, confused, still processing. Your sister's husband needs more space for the baby stuff, my mother said. There's a crib and a changing table and all the gifts. They just don't fit in the smaller room. So put them in the living room, I said. They want to be near the baby, my father said. It's their first Christmas with her. They're excited. You understand, I understood. I understood exactly what was happening. I had been understanding it my entire life. My name is Lucas Morgan. I'm 32 years old. I'm a real estate developer, and I had just spent 6 hours driving from Chicago to my parents' house in a small town in Ohio because my mother had called me crying about how much she missed me and how Christmas wouldn't be the same without her only son. She had begged me to come home. She had promised me the guest room. She had told me I was her favorite and that she couldn't wait to see me. And now she was putting me in the garage. Welcome to Vindication. Get settled because this one is going to make you angry. But I promise you, by the end, it's going to feel right. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to love how this ends. Here, let me back up. To understand what happened on that Christmas Eve, you need to understand my family, the Morgans. A family that looked perfect from the outside. 2 parents, 2 children, a big house on Maple Street, and enough holiday decorations to make Clark Griswold jealous. Every year, my mother made sure our house was the most decorated on the block. Thousands of lights. Inflatable snowmen. A nativity scene that took my father 3 hours to set up. The whole neighborhood would drive by just to look at it. My father, Harold Morgan, was a retired accountant. He was quiet, methodical. The kind of man who kept spreadsheets of his Christmas shopping budget. He loved order. He loved predictability. He loved when things went according to plan. The problem was, his plan always put my sister first. My mother, Patricia Morgan, was the family glue, or so she liked to call herself. She organized the holidays. She planned the meals. She made sure everyone had a gift under the tree. But her definition of everyone seemed to have a strange hierarchy. My sister at the top, me somewhere near the bottom, just above the dog, and only because the dog couldn't drive. And then there was my sister, Natalie, 2 years younger than me, the golden child. The one who had married a man with a good job, a nice car, and a house in the suburbs. The one who had given my parents their first grandchild. The one who could do no wrong. If she wanted something, my parents made sure she got it. If she complained, they fixed it. If she was unhappy, everyone was unhappy. I was the one who left. I moved away at 18 for college and never really came back. I built a life for myself in Chicago. I built a career. I built a business. I built a net worth that would make my father's spreadsheets weep. But I never talked about it. I never bragged. I never drove up in a fancy car or wore expensive suits. I just showed up. Quietly. Faithfully. Year after year. Holiday after holiday. And year after year, my parents showed me exactly where I stood. My sister got the best room in the house. I got the pullout couch. My sister got the homemade cookies. I got the store-bought ones. My sister got my mother's undivided attention. I got my mother's distracted, "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're here," before she turned back to my sister. I never complained. That was my thing. I never complained. I was the easy one, the low-maintenance one, the one who would just smile and nod and pretend everything was fine. I thought that if I was easy enough, they would love me more. I thought that if I didn't make waves, they would appreciate me. I thought that if I was the perfect, grateful son, they would finally see me. They never saw me. And on Christmas Eve, they put me in the garage. I should back up to the day before, December 23rd. I arrived at 4 p.m., 6 hours of driving in the snow. My back hurt. My neck was stiff. I was exhausted. But I was excited, genuinely excited, because my mother had called me a week earlier and said, "Lucas, we have a proper guest room now. We renovated. We can't wait for you to stay in it. It's beautiful." I believed her. I was so stupid. I actually believed her. When I walked in, the house was chaos. My sister and her husband, Derek, had arrived an hour earlier with the baby. And when I say chaos, I mean the kind of chaos where everyone is talking at once and no one is listening. My mother was holding the baby. My sister was telling her husband to unpack the car. My father was trying to find the wine opener. And I was standing in the doorway with my suitcase, waiting for someone to notice me. My mother finally looked up. "Lucas! Oh, honey, you're here!" She came over with the baby, gave me a one-armed hug, and immediately turned back to my sister. "Natalie, where did you want the crib again?" I stood there, my suitcase in my hand, the guest room upstairs. I started to walk toward the stairs. "Lucas, wait!" my mother said. "We need to talk about sleeping arrangements." I turned around. "Okay, your sister and Derek are going to take the guest room," she said. "It's just easier with the baby. There's more space. We can put the changing table in there. The crib fits perfectly. So where am I sleeping? The pull-out couch is still available." "The pull-out couch," I repeated. "The one in the living room. The one with the broken spring. The one that's right next to the kitchen where everyone will be cooking at 6 a.m. It's just for a couple of nights. You're a good sleeper. You'll be fine." I looked at my mother. I looked at my sister. I looked at the baby. And I made a decision. Not a loud decision. Not a dramatic one. Just a quiet, internal decision. I would not complain. I would not make a scene. I would smile and nod and pretend everything was fine. Because that's what I did. That's what I had always done. So I slept on the pull-out couch. The spring dug into my back. The kitchen lights woke me up at 6 a.m. My father clanked pans. My mother talked loudly on the phone. My sister's baby cried. I didn't complain. But then came Christmas Eve. At 10 p.m., I was settling in for another night on the pull-out couch. My sister was in the guest room. Her husband was in the guest room. The baby was in the guest room. And my mother came into the living room. "Lucas, honey, there's a change of plans." I sat up. "What change? We need the pull-out couch. For what? Your sister's husband's brother is coming in town. He needs a place to sleep. There's nowhere else." "I don't understand. Where am I supposed to sleep?" My mother looked at my father. My father looked at the floor. My mother looked back at me. We were thinking the garage. The garage. It's insulated. Sort of. And we have a space heater. You'll be fine. It's just for one night. "Mom, it's Christmas Eve." "I know, honey. I know. But it's just one night. And your sister's husband's brother needs somewhere to sleep. We can't put him in the garage. He's a guest. And I'm not?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. We both knew the answer. I was not a guest. I was not family. I was an afterthought, a burden, someone who could be moved around like furniture. I was the one who would always be sacrificed for the comfort of others. So at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve, I gathered my few belongings and walked out into the garage. My mother handed me a thin blanket and a space heater that made a rattling noise when I turned it on. She said good night and closed the door behind me. And I stood there, in the dark, in the cold, surrounded by old boxes and garden tools and the smell of gasoline. I stood there and I realized something. I realized that I had been sleeping in a garage my entire life. Not a physical garage, an emotional one. I was always the one who got moved, the one who got sacrificed, the one who was asked to be quiet and small and grateful for whatever scraps I was given. I sat down on the floor. wrapped myself in the thin blanket, and I started to think. I thought about my business. The real estate development company I had built from nothing, the properties I owned, the buildings I had renovated, the neighborhoods I had transformed. I thought about the money. The kind of money that my parents would never understand. The kind of money that could buy a house bigger than theirs. That could buy the whole street. And I thought about the street. Maple Street. The street they lived on. The street they drove down every day. The street they thought was theirs. I owned it. Every single house on that street. I owned them all. I had bought them quietly, one by one. Over the course of 5 years. I had never told anyone. I had never bragged. I had never even mentioned it. Because why would I? My parents had never asked about my business. They had never been interested. They had never even known what I did for a living. They thought I was just some guy with a job. They thought I was just their son who they could put in the garage. They didn't know I owned the street. I sat in that garage for 2 hours. 2 hours of cold. 2 hours of anger. 2 hours of thinking about everything I had done for them and everything they had never done for me. I had paid off their mortgage. They didn't know that. I had put money in their bank account. They didn't know that. I had quietly, silently been their safety net for years, and they still put me in the garage. At 1 a.m., I made a phone call. It was late, but I didn't care. The person I called was my business partner, Mark. Mark and I had been building our portfolio for 12 years. He was the only person who knew the full extent of what I had done, and I was the only person who knew he had done it too. Mark, I said, I need a favor. It was 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve, or Christmas Day. I don't even know anymore. But Mark, bless him, picked up. Lucas, what's going on? You okay? Not really, but I'm about to be. I need you to send a letter to the homeowners on Maple Street. All of them. I need it to be delivered tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. What kind of letter? A letter from the management company, telling them that the owner of the properties is going to be doing a visitation on Christmas morning, that every resident is invited to meet the person who owns their homes. Mark was silent for a moment. Then he laughed, a slow, knowing laugh. Lucas, you're with your family, aren't you? Yeah, they put me in the garage on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve. Send me the address. I'll make it happen. And he did. Mark sent the letters. Every single homeowner on Maple Street got a notice on Christmas morning. A notice that the mysterious owner of their properties, the one they had been trying to identify for years, was going to make an appearance. That they could finally meet him. That he would be visiting each house personally. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in that garage and I waited. The space heater rattled. The wind howled. My breath turned to fog. And I waited. At 6 a.m., I heard the door open. My mother. She was in her bathrobe, holding a cup of coffee. She had a smile on her face. A fake smile. The kind she used when she knew she had done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. Lucas, honey, she said. I hope you're not too uncomfortable. We'll get you a real bed tonight. I promise. I looked at her. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. I knew what was coming. I knew what I was going to do. And I knew that after today, things would never be the same. Come inside, she said. It's almost time for presents. Mom, I said. What time is it? 6 in the morning. Why? No reason. I'm going to wait a few more minutes. I'll be in soon. She shrugged, closed the door, left me in the dark. At 7 a.m., my mother opened the door again. This time she was frantic. Lucas, come inside! Something is happening! People are outside! They're all standing in the street. They're looking at our house. I don't know what's going on. The whole neighborhood is outside. Mom, relax. I'll handle it. I stood up. My joints were stiff from the cold. My hands were numb. But I didn't care. I was calm. Completely, utterly calm. Because I knew what was about to happen. I had been waiting for this moment. Not consciously. Not with a plan, but somewhere, deep in my soul, I had been waiting for the moment when I could finally show them who I really was. I walked out of the garage and into the front yard. The sun was rising. The morning was cold and bright and clear. And standing in the street, all of them looking at my parents' house, were nearly 40 people. Every single homeowner on Maple Street, all of them holding the letters Mark had sent. Lucas, my mother shrieked. What is happening? Why are they all here? I didn't answer her. I walked past her, past my father, past my sister, past her husband, past the baby in the stroller. I walked to the edge of the driveway, to the street, to the people who had gathered there, my neighbors, my tenants, people who had no idea that the quiet son of the Morgans was the reason they had roofs over their heads. Good morning, everyone, I said. I'm Lucas Morgan. I own these properties. All of them. I've owned them for 5 years. The crowd stared at me. My parents stared at me. My sister stared at me. No one said a word. I know this is unusual, I said, but I wanted to meet you in person on Christmas morning because I know how difficult the market has been. I know how hard it is to find a home. And I wanted to thank you for trusting me, for taking care of these houses, for making this street such a wonderful place to live. My father stepped forward. His face was pale. Lucas, what are you talking about? You don't own these houses. You work in. What do you do again? I smiled. It was a cold smile, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Dad, I'm a real estate developer. I've been a real estate developer for 12 years. I own dozens of properties across the state. I own every single house on this street, including yours. My mother gasped. My sister dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the driveway. I have been paying your mortgage, I said. For the last 8 years. You never knew. You never asked. You never cared. You put me in the garage on Christmas Eve, and I own the street you live on. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. Merry Christmas, everyone, I said. I'm going to go inside now. I hear there are presents. I walked back toward the house. My sister grabbed my arm. Lucas, wait. Lucas, what are you doing? We didn't know. We didn't know who you were. I know, I said. That's the problem. I walked inside. My parents followed me. My sister followed me. Her husband followed me. Everyone was talking at once, asking questions, demanding answers, crying, apologizing, begging. They had never seen me like this. They had never seen the real me, the confident one, the powerful one, the one who owned the street. I stood in the living room. The Christmas tree was lit. The presents were piled underneath. My mother had put a giant present for my sister under the tree. A gift I had bought for her. A gift she didn't know I had paid for. Lucas, my mother said, please, talk to us. We're your family. I looked at her, at my father, at my sister, at the chaos I had just unleashed, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not joy, just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally, after years of being invisible, see exactly who you are. I own the street, I said again. I own all of it. I bought it because I wanted to protect you. I wanted to make sure you never had to worry about being evicted. I wanted to make sure you could stay in your home for the rest of your lives. But you never asked me. You never cared enough to ask. You were so busy being perfect and focused on my sister that you never even saw me. You never asked about my life, my business, my dreams. You just assumed I was the quiet one, the one who would always be there, the one you could push around. Well, guess what? I'm not quiet anymore. I turned to my sister. And you have been the center of their world your entire life. You never once stopped to think about me. You never asked why I was always the one who got the pull-out couch. You never asked why I always seemed fine, because you didn't want to know. It was easier to just ignore me. She opened her mouth to speak. I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't. Not today. Today, I'm going to be the one who is seen. Today, I'm going to be the one who is heard. And after today, I'm going back to Chicago. I'm going back to my life, my business, my people. And I'm not sure I'm ever coming back. My mother burst into tears. My father stared at the floor. My sister looked like she had been slapped, and I just stood there, in the middle of it all, finally being seen. I walked to the Christmas tree, picked up the present I had bought for my sister, a kitchen appliance she had wanted, an expensive one. I had bought it months ago. I had wrapped it myself. I had put a bow on it, And now I looked at it and I realized that I had been buying gifts for people who didn't deserve them. I had been showing up for people who wouldn't show up for me. I handed the present to my mother. "Give this to her. I'm going outside." I walked back out into the cold. The crowd of homeowners was still there. Some of them were still holding their letters. A few of them approached me, cautiously. "Mr. Morgan," one of them said, "we never knew. We never knew the owner was your son." I nodded. "I know. I wanted to keep it quiet." But sometimes you have to stop being quiet. Another person stepped forward. "Thank you. Thank you for keeping our home safe." I smiled. A real smile. For the first time in hours. "You're welcome. Have a Merry Christmas." I walked down the street, past the houses I owned, past the houses my parents had thought were owned by faceless corporations, past the houses I had bought to protect the people who had never protected me. I walked to the end of the street, and I stood there, looking back at my parents' house, at the lights, the decorations, the inflatable snowmen, the perfect, beautiful facade of a happy family. And I realized I was done. I was done being invisible. I was done being quiet. I was done being the one who was always overlooked. I pulled out my phone. I called Mark. "Hey," I said, "I'm done here. I'm going home." "Did you do it?" he asked. "Did you tell them?" I told them. I showed them. And it felt good. It felt like I finally stopped sleeping in a garage, even if it's just my emotional garage. Merry Christmas, Lucas. Merry Christmas, Mark. I hung up the phone. I stood there on the street. My street. Every single house in sight. Mine. I had built it. I had earned it. And no one in my family would ever know how much it cost. But one thing is for sure. I know it. I remember it. And I will never, ever sleep in the garage again. Loyalty and love deserve a legacy. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family stories right here on Vindication. I will see you on the next one.